Everyone, welcome to the European Data Analytics Conference 2023. My name is Adam from Product Network Europe and Startup Network Europe, and very happy to welcome you all here today. So for today, we have 60 minutes and we have 9 speakers in just 60 minutes. They are Sam, who is Chief Data Storyteller, a founder and Managing Director at Inside Agents. Sam is also Advisory Council Member at Harvard Business Review. We have Gillian, who is Group Chief Data and Digital Officer at the Weir Group. We have Dr. Tankoyeu, Co-founder and Chief Data Officer at AI Superior. He's also Co-founder and Chief Data Officer at FlyPix.AI. And of course, we have Anne as well, who's Director of Data Analytics at TM Forum. We'll also have Gianluca from PA Consulting, where he's Global Head of Data Science. Yasen, who's Chief Data and Analytics Officer at Intelligence Node, and Dmitry, who's Head of Data Science at Al-Futtaim, Impact Council Member, AI Subcommittee at Fast Company Middle East as well. So let's get this started. And Sam, you are our first speaker. You're Chief Data Storyteller, Founder and Managing Director at Inside Agents, helping companies to create the most compelling and distinctive narrative to tell authentic, relevant brand stories. Also, you are an Advisory Council Member at Harvard Business Review, the leading destination for smart management thinking. So my question for you is, what strategies do you use to create compelling data visualizations that deliver insights clearly to both technical and non-technical stakeholders?
Very good. Well, thank you for the invitation. Bang on 10:05. I have between 3 and 5 minutes. I will keep this to 5 minutes. I'm actually not going to answer your question, but I'm not going to answer your question for a very good reason. So I call myself a data storyteller. I started life as a classicist because I was badly taught mathematics, then learned statistics when I went back to school to do a master's and a doctorate in experimental psychology. So I bring those two skills, the narrative skills of the classicist and the analytical skills. And the reason I'm not going to answer your question about data visualization is because it's not about data visualization as far as I'm concerned. If you're going to move from data to insight and then tell powerful stories with it, you need to do 3 things. You need to ask smarter questions to get the right data. You need to use that right data in order to get genuine insight, not casual observations, but genuine insight. By that, I mean a profound and useful understanding that says, so what, this is what the data means, and then now what, this is what we should do as a result. It's all, about empathy, being able to put yourself into the mind, the mindset, the shoes of those that you're looking to influence. And if you start by having a data set and dumping it into Tableau or Power BI or Excel or whatever you might use, and you go on a fishing expedition, as my statistics lecturers used to call it, well, you're not going to get, I think, to the correct answer. If you're telling a story, Aristotle, I mentioned I was classicist, Aristotle in his book, The Art of Rhetoric in 330 BC, said that we need 3 things for a powerful, persuasive narrative. To do what you're saying, to deliver insights to both technical and non-technical stakeholders. We need ethos, credibility. We need to talk about stories, pathos, about emotion, real human stories, balancing the emotional with the rational with the data. And I'll come back to that because that's how we make decisions. So I think there are 6 golden rules about data storytelling that come before data visualization. The first is to know your audience, is to use data to really understand and define your audience and to get a sense of what their likely data tolerance is. You've given in your question 2 extremes there, technical and non-technical. The lawyer Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird tells his daughter Scout that you never really understand a person until you consider things from her point of view, until you climb inside of her skin and walk around it. And that's vital, I think, in brilliant and effective data storytelling. The second is to keep it simple yet smart. Blaise Pascal and Oliver and Mark Twain and Oscar Wilde and Winston Churchill all said, I would have written you a shorter letter, but I just didn't have the time to do that. Now, with data storytelling, it's so valuable to put the time in to understand what the visual, verbal, pictorial, whatever kind of data you're using, so valuable to put the time in. That time spent to keep it simple yet smart will pay dividends. In the third rule, you need to find and use only relevant data. This means it's going to take time. And I know in an always on demand world, we're pressed and we don't have the time. But force yourself to make that time to find and use only relevant data. Now, one of the biggest fails, I think, in data storytelling is this, that we are victims of the curse of knowledge. When we know a lot about something, and we all in our individual technical or less technical roles know a huge amount about what we're working on, we fall foul to the curse of knowledge. The Harvard psychologist Steve Pinker defines that as the difficulty in imagining what it's like for someone else not to know something that you know. So imagine it's this empathy fail. It's this failure to understand and put ourselves in the mindsets of the others that we're looking to influence. 1 minute to go. Balancing the emotional and the rational, really important, because Pinker's opposite number at Princeton, Daniel Kahneman, Mr. Thinking Fast and Slow, has shown that we make our decisions emotionally. We only go on to justify them rationally. We make our decisions using the part of the brain that has no access to data, information, facts, language. So balance the emotional and the rational, and then do that extraordinary thing, which appeals to both the technical and the non-technical in us. In the audience that we're looking to move to action. Talk human. Use human language telling real human stories. So know your audience, keep it simple yet smart, find and use only relevant data, beware that curse of knowledge, and then balance the emotional and the rational and talk human. And then, by all means, use brilliant data visualization tools once you know what the story is. There we go, 2 seconds left.
Thank you, Sam. And what can you repeat that Oscar Wilde quote about writing a short letter? I love that.
I would have written you a shorter letter, Adam, but I just didn't have the time. Make the time to write that shorter letter and find and use only genuinely relevant data.
Yeah, great. Brilliant. I love that. I'm going to use that myself. So, folks, next up, we have Gillian, Group Chief Data and Digital Officer at the Weir Group, one of the world's leading engineering businesses. And Gillian, my question for you is, in the context of the evolving generative AI area, where do Internet of Things and AI intersect with data governance? And what are some of the key ethical, security, and regulatory considerations that organizations need to navigate?
Thanks, Adam. I'm probably going to have to do a course with Sam offline around storytelling, so I'll try and do this justice. Bear with me. Forgive me for going after him. So I'm Joel Tomlinson, and I head up data and digital for the Weir Group, and we're a mining engineering organization. So hardcore mining, minerals, iron ore. We support organizations. With pump, the major pumps on the mine site, the cutting hydrocyclones, engineering equipment, diggers, etc. And for those of you that understand the industry or in the know of the industry, we're going through unprecedented digitization and change at the moment. And it's a catalyst is ESG, for example, but also driving huge productivity. I'll give you an example. There's a copper mine we work with in Canada, and in a smart car, there's 80 kilograms of copper. The whole grid, electrification grid, is copper-based as well. It's not the only mineral, but it is copper-based. Your smartphone is 8 grams of copper. And in order to hit ESG targets by 2030, we have to open the equivalent of 25 new copper mines. So that's effectively an impossible ask. So what's your alternatives? Well, your alternatives are to actually drive as much efficiency and productivity through your mining and engineering as possible to be able to actually maximize the value of what we generate out of it. And how do you do that? Well, we embracing digital technologies, driving the use of AI and the use of data is absolutely critical to the journey. You can't actually address ESG or understand where your energy, waste, and water is leaking across your mining journey unless you understand where you're sharing data, and unless you actually can do that in real time in terms of prompting actions, understand, the use of AI. So AI is very prevalent in our industry. It's very pervasive. We bought an AI organization just as an organization 2 years ago. So we've got 160 people sitting in Vancouver. And to give you an indication, we've got sensors that we place obviously across, from an IoT perspective, across all our equipment, and we real-time stream data in. Plus, we've gone a step further. So we have cameras. So if you can imagine a conveyor belt with materials flowing over a conveyor belt, if there's a big boulder, it can actually break the process through the mining site, right, or the cutting equipment, and that can debilitate a mine, causing millions of pounds worth of damages. We now have sensors and cameras sitting collecting data and in real time can detect anomalies. We then drive that through from a predictive perspective, and we can drive that back into our operations from product design. So the use of data, AI, and digital is enormous for us as a mining engineering organization. And we see a real step change with generative AI. So very excited about it. We've already mobilized the generative AI program across our organization. The value is not necessarily just across our value chain and what we believe we can do within the IoT space, but also internally from an operational perspective. And I think it's in a couple of areas. So just to highlight, really the processing of enormous amounts of data, right? The ability to synthesize, contextualize, drive insight from it. Generative AI could actually bring a real step change to our ability to do that. From a security perspective in the IoT and device space, really being able to drive out far more real-time and insight and automated ways of patching, security anomaly detection, etc., is huge. Intelligent app development. So when we actually real-time stream data in and we're providing that back to a site engineer to say, look, this is your real-time dashboard and this is what's happening across your operations and you need to act accordingly. Our ability to develop intelligent apps, actually generative AI could make a real step change. So from the code building to bug detection to automating the documentation, so through your API development. And just to give you, an example, we are we're Microsoft Azure cloud environment, but we're actually partnering with Microsoft. So at the moment, we're piloting GitHub and with our developers in our AI function, and effectively by the end of September, we're looking to roll that out. But what that means from a generative AI perspective is we're looking at 30 to 40% productivity gains with our developers in terms of how they build code, right? That's an enormous step change, and that's only one example. So we see a real step change to our organization in terms of the use of that. Internally, we're going live with our own version of what you would call ChatGPT for our organization, and the ability to really harness our knowledge and intellectual capital internally and drive out use cases with our business is absolutely critical. But this really brings in the ethical, security, and regulatory concerns, and it's something that's going to keep us awake at night for quite a while, I think. But I think from an ethical perspective, it's really where we use this. So for us, especially if we're actually replacing operational activities with digitization and AI, it's really important that, if it really has an impact on human life or health and safety, that we really respect the quality of it. We're very confident in its ability to produce the results. From a security perspective, we have to upskill our workforce. How do you write a prompt? How do you actually write a phrase that's going to bring you back the right information with, restrictions that say, but ignore this, avoid that? How do you actually monitor? How do you audit? How do you actually apply security around it in terms of not losing your IP? So where your data actually flows off into the large language model world. And then from a regulatory perspective, I think data privacy and IP. So especially if we're sharing data across our mining journey, who owns what piece of data and where does that fit in terms of IP and your ability to then generate revenue off the back of it, because we make money from digitized products as well. So I think everyone's on a learning journey at the moment. And from a data governance perspective, I know that major players like Informatica, Calibra, different organizations are building generative AI into their products as well to be able to drive, let's say, a step change in metadata tagging, data governance, data management. But I think this is a world we're all catching and playing catch up in, and we're all learning together because it's really new. So I think the opportunity is absolutely fantastic. But the concern for us is also very real, and it does constitute a step change to how we embrace this within our organization.
Great. Gillian, thank you so much, and really, really appreciate that. Next up, we have Dr. Ivan Tankoyeu. You are co-founder and chief data officer of AI Superior, a company that, with a big focus on big data, machine learning, and AI, delivers end-to-end product development. You're also the co-founder and chief data officer of FlyPix.AI, which is the all-in-one platform powered by AI for object detection, localization, and segmentation. So my question for you is, AI and machine learning are transforming industries. Where do you see the implementation of AI and machine learning having a most significant impact on an organization's data strategy and also its outcomes?
Thank you, Adam. Basically, based on our experience at AI Superior, so what we are doing, we're analyzing the in terms of impact of AI on the business. We're analyzing. We take a classical approach, like taking the value versus the complexity of implementation, but in AI business, you basically have another dimensionality, which is risk. So your AI model might not work for the business. And in this case, you have to keep in mind the data quality, the organizational process, and many more things before you come in and with a risk assessment. So in this sense, you do the impact analysis with help of risk-adjusted return on investment. Yeah, but coming back to maybe, so this is more, let's say, about the approach on how you can estimate the impact of the AI on the organizational level. Coming back to the specific areas, so it's really diverse. So in some cases, in some industries, it might be a core of the business, right? For example, in pharmaceutical drug discovery approach, it's changing completely. The impact is huge because it takes years in a conventional way to create a new drug, while with AI it can take rather a month, right? Only for inventing. I'm not talking about the clinical trials and so on and so forth. But for other businesses, it can be traditional, departments which might be improved with AI. For example, predicting some events, like predictive analytics, right, approach, which can forecast some events, but still one has to think about that there is still like a black swan, which is not possible to predict by AI, because AI is learning on the previous events and black swan is unknown events. Customer segmentation and personalization, so this is a standard also way to move on and profile your customers in order to improve your channels of selling. Anomaly detection, natural language processing, this is more on technological dimension, right? In terms of organization, it's HR department, it's a sales, marketing, and so on and so forth. So, and any of it can use different dimensionality. Marketing most likely will use generative AI. Sales would be using predictive analytics, right? And so on and so forth. And so you also can enhance your product and service offering, right? Chatbots and virtual assistant, recommendation engine. So optimizing the pricing policies and models. So, but again, so it depends heavily on industry, and it depends heavily on the quality of data processes and the ability to adopt and willingness to adopt from organizational perspective.
Great, Ivan, thank you so much. And folks, I just posted in the chat, we will open up the chat in a moment. I do want to say thank you, by the way, to Amplitude, of course, a data and analytics tool, for sponsoring this conference. And I did share a couple of polls, and I'm going to share the results now. So where is everybody here from? It's a good mix of countries. The UK is #1, but we also have lots of people from Germany, Netherlands, the rest of Europe. So I'm really happy to see that. Also Asia and Africa and Oceania, very good to see. And the other poll that I had was the roles of people here. So it's a good mix. Again, data analytics, most of you, 38% of you are specifically in data or analytics. We also have a lot of product people and CEOs and founders. Most of you are from small and big companies, again, a big mix. And most of you are more B2B rather than B2C, which is not really a surprise, I think, for Europe. Now, next up, we have a very good speaker, and got a good question for you. You're the Director of Data Analytics at TM Forum, which is an association of over 850 member companies with customers across 180 countries. And my question for you, in a world rich with data, how can organizations collaborate and form partnerships to mutually benefit from data sharing without compromising privacy?
Sure. So I guess to give some context to this, who I work for, TM Forum, like you said, we're a members organization. And what that does is drive collaboration between telco, within the telco industry. And obviously, data is becoming, it's the basis of business intelligence. And it's, a really valuable asset, if not the most one for most organizations. That's how you improve. That's how you, drive efficiency. It's how you, really get to the value the quickest. So part of that is, of course, collaboration within data. And, like I said, data is the basis of business intelligence, and collaborative business intelligence, at the basis of that really has to be trust. Since, we've started looking, since GDPR has really come to the forefront in the last few years, it's really a focus, and people are very concerned when it comes to at the beginning of their journey of sharing and collaborating with their data sets, because obviously if it's not done properly, there is a huge risk in terms of, a comeback legally, etc. So, this is where things like clean rooms and masking data are really coming to the forefront of technology. The old BI tools really aren't, they weren't built with this future in mind. So we're seeing this influx of new technologies that are allowing us to anonymize our data, encrypt it. But best of all is things like clean rooms. You can share your data, but not show it. So you get to give all that great insight, but not allow them access to the underlying confidential personal data. And that is really game changing, in one, that you can really get to value much quicker if you collaborate with your big partners, if they've done a piece of research, if they have a customer demographic base that you really want to pull into that. It's, you don't have to go through these loopholes that you used to have to go through to make sure it was clean. So there was a very arduous process. And now it's as simple as, as long as you have your governance in place, you're classifying your data, what's personal information, etc. It's a very quick, here's my data set, go ahead and use it. And, I think about 50% of the data that our members share, most of it, unsurprisingly, is customer data. In terms of, their customer base. So of course, like I said, the personal data isn't shared, but that's what the demand is for. And also demographic data and data around the companies that are using their products and services. So obviously in this case, whether it's internet, whether it's, telephone, etc. But what's really game changing is that they're now able to start monetizing that data and sharing it as a data set. So they're creating, if one company has done a big research project on 5G masts, and, another company comes in and they're like, well, they've already done that. So they're actually now starting to really monetize these data sets and share them in that secure fashion. And things like clean rooms are great because, like I say, you get to share them. The other companies get the insights. You both get value from sharing each other's data, but you never lose control of your data. And I think that's the key thing that is really, driving this collaboration, is that they feel in control the whole time. They're not concerned that someone's going to, do something with their data that they shouldn't. They have full control of what they can query, what they can ask the data. So I think it is really game changing. And I think if people don't leverage collaboration of data, they're really going to start falling behind, especially with the introduction of, we're getting tighter with third-party cookies, things like that. This is a real way to kind of get that greater understanding of your customer base. So yeah, it's really coming to the forefront of the telco industry, and they're really realizing the value that they don't have to do all the work. They can share some of that cost and some of that, some of the resource with another telco and get it for free and facilitate that collaboration. So.
Anne, excellent. I know it's very easy to say something in 10 minutes, very hard to say it in only 2 or 3 minutes. So Really appreciate that. And I guess that's the end of our first panel. Really appreciate the speakers who just took part. We'll now move on to our second set of speakers. And Gianluca, are you there?
Yeah, I am. Don't worry. It's the usual mute trick. So.
No worries. I did it during COVID too, and we're using Zoom all the time.
I know.
Well,
okay.
Salve, grazie, thank you for coming. So I guess my question for you then, from Warsaw right now, is you are the global head of data science at PA Consulting, which is a company that believes in the power of ingenuity to build a positive human future. And question for you, what role is data science playing in shaping the future of industries and human future in general?
Well, that's such a visionary question, and a little bit of how long is a piece of string, to be honest. So, because there's so much, of course, that data can and is and will do across industries. So, just before I start, maybe not all of you will know who PA Consulting is, and we are a consulting firm, global consulting firm that focuses on digital and data, but we also do a lot of work in management consulting, in economic studies, as well as in the delivery of complex projects. And also we build things. We have a center in Cambridge where we actually prototype and industrialize new products. And from where I stand, it's an interesting place. Needless to say, data are already pervasive. And I really like the point, by the way, that Anne was making around collaboration and sharing of data, which I think is very important and not done enough in many, many industries, if not pretty much all the industries. And the application, especially now with the forthcoming AI revolution, I still call it forthcoming, because while everyone is very excited and rightly so, and there are companies and sectors that are more advanced in terms of AI, what we're seeing across the board is an interest to experiment, to try it out, to see what are the use cases, to identify what are the use cases that we need to carry out. And what we're also noticing is that whilst this excitement is great and is the right thing to do, there's also the need to look back at what are your data foundations, right? To look back at, is your data strategy fit for purpose? Do you have the right governance around it? You have the right management structure? Are you leveraging, for instance, your cloud or clouds well enough to be able to not just experiment with AI, but take it up to production level, to take it up to scale up level? And one point that I wanted to make, which I think is very interesting, is, and that's back to what you were saying about us and our vision to create actually a positive human future, is that it is our responsibility. And when I say our, I mean everyone on this call and everyone that works around data, to really look at the use cases that we're developing and to really always keep a very firm mind around the ethics boundaries and what we're trying to achieve by using data, what we're trying to achieve when we spin off an AI program. And I think this is very, very important. In fact, it's fundamental. We don't want to end up in Terminator or The Matrix. We want to end up in a place where AI and pervasive use of data actually improves our lives. And I just want to give you a couple of examples of where that's been put in place. For instance, one is in the health sector. We're working with many hospitals in the UK in particular, creating a data platform that helps them manage more efficiently the use of the beds and the allocation of beds and the allocation of theaters, and in general improving the operations using data and live data in particular. And this has a direct impact, not just in the UK. Everyone knows that public health is not particularly easy to get quick access to, so any improvement is fundamental for people, and in particular for those that have long-term conditions that need to be taken care of. And so developing a data platform that looks at this data on live and is able to offer a recommendation that can be easily implemented in hospital, for me, is something that shows how you can use data for good. Another example is work we did for Unilever, where they wanted to preserve the well-being of their employees during the COVID period, while also also guaranteeing the production of the goods. As you know, Unilever goods are pretty much in everyone's house in one form or shape. And what we did was to create within 8 weeks a platform that was able to look at 250 data points daily to predict the spread, so they could open and close factories as needed. And that proved to be 85% accurate within an horizon of 2 weeks. So this type of work of using data to create something good for for humans, I think is where we really need to try and put our heads at. In the AI space, for instance, I see a lot of phenomenal applications around safety. Improving safety on public transit or on railways. So recently, unfortunately, in Italy, there's been an accident, a train accident where a few maintainers were killed because a train passed. That would have been easily avoided by using more reliance on data and more reliance on artificial intelligence. So I believe that what we need to do collectively is to really try and always ask ourselves, are we doing the right thing? Are we doing the right thing for our consumers? Are we doing the right thing for ourselves? And are we doing it right? And by the are we doing it right, I mean, not just the technical output, but are we looking at the whole organization? Are we supporting our move towards a data-driven and intelligence-driven organization? And I believe that that's kind of work in progress. There are some points. I was really amazed to hear Jill earlier talking about all the fantastic things they're doing at Weir, where clearly they are looking a lot also at the regulation compliance and the impact on ethics and the environment, which is obviously fundamental in their industry. And that's exactly what needs to be replicated across the board, because we are talking about something that's completely revolutionary with AI in particular. But we need to be careful that we do it in the right ethical way to guarantee a positive impact on society.
Gianluca, thank you very, very much. And really, really good insights in a short amount of time. Now we have 2 more speakers, which means after the 2 speakers, we'll have some Q&A. So folks, if you want to use the chat to just write some questions, please do that and I'll have a look and I'll pick what I can with the short time that we have. So next up, we have Yasen, who is Chief Data and Analytics Officer at Intelligence Node, which is an advanced analytics company that focuses on providing competitive market insights to global retailers and brands. Yasen, my question for you, data often resides in different systems. How do you handle the challenges of integrating different data sources to create a unified view in terms of analysis?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Adam, and thanks for the great introduction.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, all good.
Excellent. So there are a couple of points I would like to touch on. First, I think let's just take a journey back in time. A few years back, when we were talking about integration, data analytics framework, etc., the key word that everybody was mentioning was data lake. So the data lake was the foundation of everything we were doing. Then what happened was we migrated to the data mesh, so to the decentralized data architecture. Then we moved to the data fabric, automation of data integration, etc. And what is happening over the last, I would say, 6 to 8 months, we started talking about semantic layers. And not only semantic layers, but semantic layers powered by LLMs. So what are those things doing and why am I talking about them in the context of data integration? So the semantic layers are ultimately acting as a bridge between disparate data sources and legacy systems. They're actually, what they're doing, they're transforming and they're transforming they're transforming fragmented data into context-rich, actionable insights, right? Ultimately, what they do is they essentially operate as an intelligent interface of data. So how was this available? So how this became available? Of course, through the power of LLMs. And why is this key, right? The ascendancy the whole ascendancy of generative AI models, and by extension LLM models, has made them absolutely integral to data analysis and data management. So, and this is the punchline. So what these models actually do is they actually bridge the gap between existing data sets and the end user. So just coming back to what I said in the beginning, when we lived in the world of data lakes, the data was owned ultimately by the infrastructure, the engineering department. Now, with LLM and semantics layers powered by LLM in particular, what is happening is this integration is actually becoming more natural, and the end users are becoming the owners of the data and by extension the analysis. So just a quick example. I'm sure a bunch of you are familiar with the code interpreter, what they call it now, the advanced data analysis. So that's a tool provided by ChatGPT. So yesterday I played with the tool. I uploaded a couple of files, and within 5 minutes, I was able to do feature engineering. I cleaned the data and I built a model. Right, the tool actually generated the pickle file that I was able to send to my data engineers, and I had a API data point running within 20 minutes of integrating the data. So, and I think ChatGPT released this feature not more than 3-4 months back. So can you imagine what will that mean for data integration and data analytics, let's say in the next couple of years? The second point I want to make is related to, again, LLMs. So in this new reality, LLMs in general, right? We have to worry about the recency of data and how data is handled, etc., etc. So you have all these new tools and pipes that are coming into your database. For example, you have things such as RAG, which is Retrieval Augmentation Generation System, right? So we, as analytics leader, we need to think how to integrate this new algorithm to make sure that our LLM is performing at the right time and at the right speed. So by combining the strength of large language models and, let's say, RAG technologies, we can supercharge data analytics, right? 100%. And we can start injecting context and depth, making the analytic process a lot more dynamic and, of course, insightful. However, and it's a big however, right? This comes with a lot of new challenges. You have new tools that we need to integrate, vector databases or graphical databases. We have new pipes, such as the RAG pipe. You have new security procedures, and that's what Anne mentioned early on. You have differential privacy, you have federated learning, you have secure multi-computation, again, what Anne was referring to earlier, the clean rooms, etc., etc. So we as analytics leader, we need to make sure that all those things are incorporated in our thought process. So to summarize, I don't want to bore you anymore, but to summarize, ultimately data often resides in different systems, and we all know that, and that's challenging. And the new world of LLMs and semantic layer of integration is very exciting, but we as leaders, we need to continue the journey of bridging the gap between the data and the end user. And on that note, over to you, Adam.
Yasen, thank you very, very much. I love all these different topics as well in such a short amount of time. Really appreciate it. So last but not least, we have Dmitry, who is head of data science at Al-Futtaim, a diversified organization that brings the quality and reputation of more than 200 companies into life in more than 20 different countries. Dmitry, you're also an Impact Council member of AI Subcommittee at Fast Company Middle East, which is the world's leading business media brand with a unique editorial focus on innovation and technology, ethonomics, which is ethical economics, leadership and design. So my question for you, as the data landscape continues to evolve, what trends do you foresee in data analytics, and how should we prepare to stay ahead of the curve?
So hello everyone, Adam, thank you for introduction. And I want to start probably just like to give you a bit more context about Al-Futtaim. So it's like one of the biggest conglomerates in the Middle East. So we have like quite a lot of brands and divisions, and like it's automotive, retail, healthcare, insurance, real estate. So for us, just like to pursue the importance of the data landscape development, and let's say what the latest trends are quite important because we're combining quite a lot of brands and divisions. So yeah, if we'll talk about the top trends, which I can see probably within the upcoming years, I like to remember about the Harvard Business Review article. Yeah, you probably all remember regarding data scientists, which is the sexiest job of the 21st century. And I think it was the first hypo, yeah, about the machine learning, AI, just like companies were trying just like to integrate like new positions, roles, and strategy, how to utilize data. But right now, with the success of large language models, there is a second wave, the second hype regarding artificial intelligence. And how it will be developed, in my opinion. So first of all, companies will be moving towards more self-development of large language models. So right now, a lot of companies trying to integrate the solution using APIs, mostly OpenAI API, just like to use a service within organizations. And there are two pillars. One pillar is more regarding internal usage. So for example, if you think about, you have your HR team, you have your policies, and you want to have like your answers quickly. So it's just integration of large language models with your data, just like to integrate with some charts, to receive reliable information quickly, not bother, let's say, your HR department, and help them to concentrate on more important stuff. Also, it's not only about large language models. All the other theories of machine learning is also development. And I think one more thing which is quite important will be developing soon is causal AI. So it's like artificial intelligence system that can explain the cause and effect. And in my opinion, there will be the hybrid between LLMs, classical machine learning models, and causal AI, just like to bring up like to new solutions in this area. Also, it's also provocating, like this kind of development provocating the increased use of cloud computing. And we all know that right now it's like huge demand for GPUs. And right now GPUs used not only for LLMs, like for computer vision problems, but as well some companies trying to improve data processing pipelines, just like to allocate the computation within the GPUs. And they're like one company which is known in Israel, they just like build a platform where you can just like create your data pipelines and compute everything using GPUs, which seems to be even like a bit of faster compared to the Spark engine. So that's why we'll see like this kind of trend, and also like hybrid cloud computing. So when the companies will use more different clouds, like a combination of AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. This all involving as well like the growth of real-time analytics. So it's not only within the customers, like when you enter in the web page, like there will be some kind of recommendation engines will help you to find the right product for you, and also which suits you better as well, but also internal analytics, real-time analytics. The same like combination of, let's say, LLMs, then some predictive models, even like access to the data will help people to access the data in real time. For example, I'm making a decision, let's say, in which product to invest. I can just like type, let's say, what they currently are using, let's say, what the company is about, what the data we want to have, and so on, and try just to get like this insight in real time, just like to support my decision. And also like all these trends involving the increased focus on data privacy, security, and fairness. I would say that, currently a lot of regulations and development happening like in the United States, European Union, but also is coming to Middle East as well. So, and it will be increasing in importance. And I would say that fairness is also like one of the pillar. So because, like in one case, we can build a lot of models, but whether our models will be biased, where it will be fair, like according to all the customers that we have, it's also, let's say, currently some area which under development. And I think it will be just like emerging like to all the markets more and more. And the last one is like open source. I would say it's an era of open source. So people are sharing like a lot of developments, a lot of models, and they're happy just like people to contribute, because it's helping you just, let's say, to develop it faster, to receive the feedback, what is working, what is not working, and as well receive the feedback from the different areas. Let's say I'm from retail, I'm just like using some new solution, and you know, like in some cases it's working for me well, let's say for some loyalty programs, but let's say for my offline or in-store analytics, it will not work. So it's why in this case it's quite important. And the second question, Adam, you mentioned, was about like how we can stay ahead of the curve in data analytics. So first of all, it's like investment in training and education. You know, like, to be honest, I'm just like read a lot, like all the time, looking into new courses, open source solution, just like to understand what people are doing. So it's why I think it's not only like for the people who just like come into the industry, but like for the specialists to be on track. So just like to see what is happening and to read more within the archives from the universities and the articles, because, you know, in some days, some article will transfer into new solution. And it happened like with the Spark, you know, like people were working like as a part of lab. Yeah, they developed Spark engine. And then later they just like come out to the new platform, which is called Databricks, and the open source engine, like which everyone can embed it into their platform. So it's quite important just like to follow these resources. Also, like, you know, like I would say that embracing new technologies is also quite important, because in some cases companies are a bit afraid to use new technologies because it just makes some harm or just change the way how people work. And basically it's like people, because they're afraid, like, let's say that it can replace their jobs and it just like put up more competition internally as well. So that's why we should not be afraid of new technologies and try it as much as possible, because it helps us like to improve the processes and the way how the business making the decisions. And one of the more important points is focus on the data quality. You know, like it's an ongoing problem with all organizations, because in case you have like bad data, no matter which solution you will use, it still will, let's say, make the solution not so accurate, let's say, or fair, let's say, into your customers. So the simple words I can say, the garbage you will put into machine learning model, the garbage you will receive. So that's why it's quite an important topic. And I think here, external data plus LLMs can help. Yeah, so we can generate some data which can improve our current quality of the data. And the last one is to build a culture of data-driven decision-making. Because, as I mentioned, people should not be afraid of making decisions based on the data, yeah, real-time data, and as well rely like on some decisions which can bring up like to the next level of operational excellence. So that's why in case we will invest like internally within the organizations to speed up this process, like to educate people internally. Let's say if you have different business managers who, let's say, let's make an example of retail use case. So we have the person who's working on the in buying department. So they buy in the stock just like to have the fulfillment for the next season. So in case to indicate them like on the how AI systems can support their decision making and explain some terminology, so it can help, let's say, them to adopt the solutions quickly. So in this case, you will be making more progress in the AI space. So I think this is like the most common things and important to be stay ahead of data landscape and to be up to date to the market. Yeah, but you know, like it's changing all the time. So probably like in the next quarter, there will be some new development like browser and LLMs, and it will change the trend a bit. But currently it's like something that I can see.
Great, Dmitry, really good, really good topic to cover. So folks, we only have 5 minutes or 6 minutes left. We can cover one or two of your questions. Do any of the panelists want to answer this question from Dave? Which cloud provider do you see as ahead in creating their LLM services and API access? For example, Azure, OpenAI, Google Vertex AI, AWS. Does anybody want to cover that?
I can cover.
Go ahead.
So I would recommend Hugging Face. It's really family of a lot of models and became an industry standard. So it's not a hosting per se, right? But they provide a very nice service in terms of supporting and deploying the model. So Hugging Face, also it's open source and supported by many organizations, NVIDIA, Google, and so on.
Thank you so much, Ivan. And one more question.
I can add one point here, just to follow up on what Ivan was saying. We you can actually now integrate Hugging Face with different cloud providers. So you have Amazon has AWS has an integration where you can just pull the models and ultimately get, let's say, Facebook Llama 2 running literally in your environment for less than half a day, using again integration between Hugging Face and AWS, because it's impractical for you to run those LLMs on your own environment. First of all, it's very expensive. Second of all, they're changing very much, and you don't know kind of who's going to win at the end. So I think some kind of collaboration with a publicly available tools such as Hugging Face and AWS or Azure is probably the best way forward.
Okay, Yasen, thank you very much.
I'm sorry, can I add a bit? Like I have.
Yeah, this is a great question. Okay, go ahead.
So one thing which is important, like I want to talk about Databricks as well. So Databricks currently working quite closely with Mosaic ML, the companies that they have purchased, and they're trying to democratize the development of LLMs model. So just like to make it like cheap, quick, and just like to use your data. So like an open source model. So in other words, you can just bring up an open source model, tune it a bit, and then you have your own service which is running from your side.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else before I go to the next question?
Adam, I can throw in I can throw in a cent here, but I think so. I just remember also generative AI is going to be it's built into products, right? So every vendor out there, SAP, Oracle, you name it, is building it into their solutions, right? So that's one thing. But so if we talk about Microsoft, their Copilot range, one of the things we're dying to actually get our hands on, to be fair, is they're integrating generative AI into their Microsoft Outlook, their 360 range, right? So would it be nice to have your email basically draft reply automated for you, which is exactly what this tool does, right? So I think we got to look at it more broadly, right? There's all the different capabilities that you need. So what use case you're actually driving out, because all the different product, the product providers have got either tech products or obviously if you're building out an LLM type solution, it's slightly different proposition.
Thank you, Gillian. And I'll go to the next question, which is, what recommendation would you give to Franco, one of our guests, to take advantage of data analytics within the company in regards to human resources, where paradoxically collecting people data can be an issue, especially for SMEs?
So there are a number of use cases that we are looking at in terms of general internal processes, in particular with reference to HR, that are, I guess, different needs and depending on what the function within HR is, right? In particular, recruitment, to be honest, is an area where we are seeing a lot of companies gaining a lot of interest in terms of using artificial intelligence in doing some of the matching of skill set versus resumes that come in, especially when there's a lot of volume included for instance, there's one role for which hundreds of people, thousands of people in some cases are applying for. So there's definitely a very interesting area there. And in terms of internal processes as well, but back to the point I was making earlier, we need to do things right. You can use AI, but let's not forget there's GDPR, there are EU regulations. It's a very it's a bit of a landmine, really, in terms of what you can and cannot do. But we have seen that data are used a lot in that area. Oh, and before I forget, in HR, also training is often included. And for training, well, that's a ton that can be done, right? In terms of training, using not just artificial intelligence, not just advanced analytics, but a combination of those to even identify what the training needs are. We did an interesting job for Network Rail around using data to understand where the right training was to be delivered to the right person at the right time, to A, save money in the training delivery, but B, also to increase journey times to decrease journey times and increase the availability of the railway. So many use cases in HR, basically, but careful on what exactly you're doing, because there are things that we can and things that we cannot do.
Thank you very much. And yes, in the chat, yes, we have recorded this event and we will message all registrants in the coming days. So guys, thank you so much to the speakers, most of all, for coming, to Amplitude for sponsoring, and of course, all the attendees for having an hour of your time. I'm in Warsaw right now. We're in Stockholm tomorrow. We have a big tour coming up with Amplitude involved. So thank you, everyone. And yeah, have a nice week end ahead. I really appreciate it.